Good morning, everyone. Welcome on second day of Polish-American Innovation Bridge. This is a session regarding hydrogen technologies. Here will come a discussion about how hydrogen technologies can pave a path towards climate-neutral economies. Before we start, I would like to introduce you in today's agenda of the conference. So just after this session, there will come a discussion about green energy, how green energy can give the sustainability to the economy, to our planet. Then parallelly at 10, there will be a special guest, Tomasz Rożek, really known knowledge popularizer, who is conducting a YouTube channel Nauka to Lubię. And he will describe how to communicate quite complex topics regarding climate change and new energy sources. Then what I would like to emphasize is a scale and enterprise in the industry of clean tech. At 11:15, a special guest, Paweł Kluczyński, CEO of Aeroptic company, will explain how the history of his company. He started 10 years ago as a single person in his small laboratory, and in 10 years, he created a company that is exporting globally. This company is a pioneer in gas analyzers, which are working on site, so on a chimney, on a factory process, and in real time, it measured the amount of gases like hydrogen, like carbon oxides, and many others that are quite complicated to measure in other ways. So you're welcome for this session. So now I will pass the microphone to Jakub Kupecki, who is also a Top 500 Innovators Program alumni, and he will lead the discussion regarding hydrogen technologies. Welcome to the session.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jan, for the introduction. Yes, we're going to be speaking about hydrogen today, and as you know, hydrogen has been a hot topic at different levels in the discussions in different regions, and now we can see that every single region is now trying to make steps towards this interesting, let's say, new area of activities, and this is not done without a cost. First of all, it creates some unique opportunities for the decarbonizing industries, for the decarbonizing power sector, but most importantly, looking on like how we can transition towards so-called climate neutrality. And there is a lot of potential, there is a lot of opportunities, but there is also a lot of mistakes to be made, and it requires a lot of money. So this panel brings excellent speakers today who are going to cover those issues with some navigation from my side. First of all, we have Ewa Mazur here. She's the head of the Hydrogen Economy and Innovation Unit at the Ministry of Climate and Environment. And Ewa was directly involved in drafting and shaping the Polish hydrogen strategy, which was just recently adopted by the government. We have Dr. Ania Niemczyk here at the panel. She's a postdoctoral fellow in the Institute of Power Engineering. She's a team member of the Center for Hydrogen Technologies working on materials for fuel cells and for electrolyzers. We have Dr. Luca Mastropasqua, who is joining us from the US. Thanks, Luca, for staying awake, even though it's the middle of night for you. Luca is a senior research scientist at the University of California, Irvine, working at the National Fuel Cell Research Center in the US. And Mr. Piotr Jóźwiak, who is also working at the Institute of Power Engineering, doing a lot in the field of conventional technologies that are going to this new area of hydrogen, so kind of retrofitting, repurposing, and adjusting them to this new reality. My name is Jakub Kupecki. I'm the head of the Center for Hydrogen Technologies. So being active in the field for 10 years, as Jan said, I'm alumni of Top 500 Innovators, and also been collaborating with people here in the panel. And that's going to be my pleasure to moderate the discussion. So in the beginning, as I mentioned, it is about making and avoiding mistakes, and it's also about money. So my first question goes to Luca Mastropasqua. We are working in California, which is kind of at the forefront of those activities. As we call it, is our Mecca when we speak about fuel cells, about electrolyzers. And this is done with some strategy probably. So I wanted to ask you for some highlights on what are the key drivers for doing that, and what is special in particular that California is here at such a level of advancement here. So it would be also nice to know, was there anything special about the funding schemes that are supporting this process?
Yes, thank you very much, Jakub. Yes, definitely. It's, as you said, in the past few years, the world of hydrogen has definitely seen an increase in interest, and in the US, especially recently, there has been a lot of new announcements for policy and investment. So the key drivers are really coming also to the US from a federal point of view. So I will start from a federal perspective, and if you follow the news in the past 2 or 3 months, the Department of Energy and the federal government has really started a lot of activities in terms of supporting new energy bills and energy policy. So in the past 2 months, the Department of Energy has announced the energy earth shots. And in terms of hydrogen, we have this hydrogen shot, which has a very bold target of reaching the so-called 1-1-1, so $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. And that's the sort of final target. They want to achieve $1 a kilogram within 2030. And that's the main sort of policy driver that the Department of Energy is trying to push both industry and research across the country. And that is being supported now much more recently via the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill just got passed at a federal level, and that has a lot of new funding, has $8 billion dedicated to the creation of at least 5 hydrogen hubs across the US. And that will definitely bring a lot of additional resources for research and for private development all over the country. On top of the $8 billion, there are other $1.5 billion for specifically for the development of demonstration projects associated to production of hydrogen in various ways, various forms from different sources. So this is at a federal level, and this is kind of the biggest news that we've had recently in terms of resources and in terms of sort of direction towards the future in the next 10 years. California, as you said, has always been kind of ahead across the whole 50 states in the US. So even before this federal level bill, there were other policy drivers in California that already had a target to reach 100% net zero of electric power generation by 2045. And that was a bill that passed in 2018. And so it had already a policy framework that allowed that as a sort of a final direction for the sector, for the power generation sector at least. So that was one. And then there is the very interesting and financially interesting tax incentive program called the LCFS, the Low Carbon Fuel Standard, which is specific for California, that is focused on the decarbonization of transportation fuels. In California, there is one of the major sources of CO2 emissions is transportation sector. So the levelized the low carbon fuel standard is trying to tackle that sector. And so definitely hydrogen projects and big hydrogen demonstration projects can be can become financially attractive via this low carbon fuel standard program. So I think these are the two aspects from a federal level and from a California level, from a policy perspective. And then there are many other sort of technical advancements associated to the decreasing cost of electrolyzers. And in California, since the first time I've been to California more than 5 years ago, there were only just a few hydrogen cars around on the streets, but today there are definitely many more. It's visibly different. So and this is thanks to the sort of proliferation also of the infrastructure, the refueling infrastructure that has increased. And so this is, again, mainly for policy drivers, but definitely the private sector has understood and has sort of started to invest their own private money, which is going to be the bulk of the investments overall in the sector.
All right, thank you. So it seems that this is being approached from different angles by different bodies, different organizations. The business is collaborating with the policymakers, and that will be interesting to now take a look on the Polish case. So I would like to come with the second question to Ewa Mazur from the Ministry of Climate and Environment. Well, if we are following what's going on, one can say that we have such an evolutionary approach that we are gradually getting to the point, looking at the European Commission and the legislation that is done at the European level. And is this statement really true? Or like, is there something that we do ourselves that is not being done by the others? Are we really proactive here?
Thank you, Kuba, for this question. This is a big question, whether we are taking part in a revolution or are we on more of an evolutionary path. Well, I could agree with both statements, but I could not really agree with a statement that we are just simply coping in Poland, whatever happens at the EU level, nor anyone is coping really anyone these days. I think that in this very globalized world, we have achieved this moment where we also have knowledge and where there is enough access to science that to make every country aware of the threat that we are all facing, and we are together in this problem of climate change. So I wouldn't say that this is a matter of following someone. It is just a matter of acting in order to mitigate the effects or contribute to stopping climate change. So it's not only about Poland or the European Union, but the whole globe is concerned or should be concerned about this issue. So it also needs to be noted that hydrogen has been present for years on the European agenda, while in Poland, the relevant unit and the relevant policy topics was created only in 2020. And since then, with less resources, we have not only elaborated the strategy, but also legislated, created first financing programs, and a new model of social participation in policymaking. And I mean here the hydrogen economy sector deal that we concluded in October, where we took on board as administration representatives of business, science, and civil society in order to discuss together what the objectives for the development of this new field should be. We are simply aware as government administration that we do not own we do not know answers to all of the questions, and this public administration, especially from the part of business and scientists, is just crucial to prepare, to make policies that will be relevant, that will be future-proof and last. If you can tell that about hydrogen, that this is a lasting topic, because we know how many waves this area had, waves, let's say, of interest coming back and forth to the agendas of scientists or international and political bodies. Well, is it an evolutionary approach? I would say not necessarily here in Poland. If the European Union were to achieve as much as we have in 1.5 years, it would take years. Another thing is that Poland is on an unprecedented path to of the energy transition and transformation of the entire economy. You may not always hear it, or well, let's say the narratives may not always sound so revolutionary. But if you look at the actual decisions that are being made of switching off the biggest polluters, I mean here the biggest coal power plants, and decisions to fill this power shortage with new and clean sources, compared to how this path looked like in the previous years, this is a dramatic change. And recently, hydrogen entered the picture. And our strategy is very clear and pronounced that this policy will only make sense when there is enough renewables. And we only work on this topic because we believe that in the future, sooner or later, the system will be renewables based or with a very high share of renewables. So I would say again, it may seem like we are lagging behind someone just because the EU issued a strategy in July last year. We had it approved early November this year, but with the resources we had and with the it was a huge advancement, I believe. And our sector deal also made different sectors of economy and businesses coming from these different sectors well aware of the fact that they should be looking there on hydrogen as an option for them. Of course, bearing in mind all of the efficiency questions. Obviously, we don't want to switch to hydrogen everything. It wouldn't make sense. But Poland has a very strong petrochemical industry. We produce a lot of fertilizers, and you cannot electrify this production. So we've made a lot of effort to get where we are now. The strategy is there. We have an amazing model and platform of cooperation with business and science, and which legislated already, and we are about to legislate even more. So I would say we just all contributing our share to towards climate neutrality, be it Poland or the European Union or the US.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a very comprehensive answer, but it clearly says that it relies on collaboration between the business, between the policymakers, and between the researchers. And I think at this stage, it would be nice to take a look on the research. And I would like to ask a question to Dr. Ania Niemczyk. Well, you are researching in the field, which is kind of still a niche market. I mean, those innovative technologies like low carbon hydrogen, which means that it is growing recently extensively. We are speaking about implementing this at the national level and also collaborating with abroad. But what is actually the measure, how you as a researcher can identify what is really going to make it to the market? What are the factors that will create a business case? And as a researcher, do you see any tools? Do you see this collaboration that will help you to identify what is really attractive to work on? Or it is just your intuitive approach that you find something interesting and you are getting into this field? So how you will distinguish between those things that are just you can be passionate about because they are interesting for a scientist, but what is going to be really applied in the market? Do you have any tools? Do you have any support? How do you get this understanding about what is really technically, economically viable? Did you get some technical issues?
And now, guys,
yes,
can you hear me?
Now it's good.
Okay, I will just put louder. So hello, everyone, again. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think the most important things that every researcher, especially at the technical field, have to ask: what's the needs of the industry or the business, like the market or industry-driven approach. It's not easy to maintain it at the academia, especially. But now we can see that even like the financial supporting bodies like National Science Centers for Research and Development, they are forcing to collaborate between the industry, companies, and the researchers, which is a good thing because then we have to really see what's the problem. And as you say, that it's something in between, that also the thing that they're fascinating us as a research, even basic research, we have to ask ourselves the question: the effort that we will make, if it's going to change anything in the field or not. And I think this question should be asked repeatedly during our pathways to develop something, developing the project or like working on some field. And also as I said, the feedback from the other researchers and also from the industry, what's their needs and what should have to be done in this matter. So also the one thing that we should have in our mind when we are developing some kind of sector, like we are developing the high temperature electrolyzer or fuel cells, like forecast and other problems that can be in next few years. What could go wrong? What's going to be in next obstacles? And also the application where we could apply our solution. So I think we are. And as society, the academic even society is changing forward. That I noticed, like my colleagues from the different fields, they're trying to go look for a market. What's going to be the new opportunities to collaborate or to create a new startups that is going to be like going or putting us forwards this neutral carbon technology and to achieve the goals. And also definitely the policy. But is there like putting more the attractive for the business partner, that they are seeing that is a good way. So for us as the researchers, we can see that developing the hydrogen technology, finally it's going to the good point that we can really put them on the market. And in Poland, there's of course niche for that, like for the green hydrogen, because as a country we produce quite a lot of hydrogen or other hydrogen carriers like ammonia. So I think there's still things that we could work on. But to keep in our mind that we have to have a feedback from the industry, what is really needed.
All right. So I understand that this is also about leaving the lab for a while, reaching out to the others to ask their questions and opinions. And I like this what you said, that you are looking for feedback not only from the business but also from the other researchers. And
that's true. And also, like, especially the one that they criticize your work, because they usually see the thing that you're not seeing, and then you can think, okay, they have a point in some of the aspects, so maybe I should work on this field or try to improve some of the parts that they're working on.
Okay, thanks for that answer. Well, it was like kind of the electrochemistry field, but I would like to now get to Piotr Jóźwiak, asking you a question. Well, like, you're a person who grew up in these conventional energy technologies, like not in the electrochemistry, but rather in those thermal cycles and the combustion processes. And now, after a couple of years, you are arriving at the point when you are very active in new technologies for making the hydrogen economy happening. So, well, I can hear some background noise. Maybe somebody should mute the microphone. You are now working with the heavy industry, with those energy-intensive industries. They must be getting into hydrogen field for some reason. And do you really have a feedback from them? Do they tell you what is the key motivation, why they are like leaving those fossil fuels and now looking on those clean technologies? Is there a really kind of feedback that Anya just mentioned that we should receive as a research society?
Well, yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. Yes, there is some feedback. I mean, the industry must cope with the reality, and EU Commission sends pretty clear signals that fossil fuels are not the future in here. So, yeah, to cope with this reality, one must invest heavily to find yourself in this new green and clean reality. As you might expect, heavy industry cannot be turned on a dime, as this is very financially heavy to push your company towards other direction. So, yeah, so one reason is, to put it simply, fear, fear for your revenues, for example, and for the existence of one's company, because the fossil fuels are going to be banned at some point. For example, the owner of the production facility must be ready to switch the production, the way he gets his energy from, or to shut down all these moves from Europe. But it appears that actually this trend is very global, so there is nowhere to run. So it's, as I said, it's fear, but also inevitability, I'd say. So, yeah, that would be the short answer for your question.
Okay, thanks. Well, so I hope that the fear is not the only motivation. However, it is very efficient motivator, or effective, I should say. But it seems that the researchers have an idea what to do and why to do. The industry seems to have some ability to formulate the feedback for a research society. But maybe we should like get back to the policymakers. And I would like to now ask Ewa Mazur another question. Like, the preparation of this Polish hydrogen strategy allowed to consult the document with many. As far as I know, it was 2,500 comments that were received, and to me it seems that most of there must be like a big share of those comments that were really sound, that they had a good point, they were raising some important questions. Is it really an indicator showing us that the society is ready for this transition, that the society knows what are the problems and they can really redefine the goals, so they can redefine the targets, saying us that they see this path of transitioning, they see the time horizon, they know what are the money factors, what are the risk factors. How would you comment on that?
Well, indeed, it was quite surprising for us when we received the comments to our strategy that it received twice as many comments as the Polish general energy strategy, the long-term one, which was just shocking, because at my unit we thought, it's such a niche topic, probably public consultation will not enjoy as much attention as public consultation of such an important document as Polish energy policy till 2040 that the government also accepted this year. But we were wrong. We were very wrong. So we received double as much as our colleagues from energy, general energy policy did. And it was an amazing experience to go through these comments. Our main observation is that Polish business and academia and researchers and also society. We had comments coming from the NGOs. We also have quite a share of simply these regular Jan Kowalski type of comments that are coming from people who are just concerned about the future of their country, about the economy of this country. So it's the main conclusion is that there is a huge appetite for hydrogen, and not only, also for energy tech, clean tech in Poland. And it applies both to Polish business and, let's say, Polish stakeholders, as well as to the foreign companies operating in Poland or planning to enter our market. They are very well aware that we are quite a big economy in the center of Europe that is on the way towards climate neutrality, and that our path will take a bit more effort, which means also that it will take more investment and more money to achieve this goal for 2050. So they obviously see Poland as a big market for renewables, for energy tech, for their products that will support this transition that our economy is going through. So,
but can you say that the feedback that was collected at the ministry showed clearly that some of the comments were based on a good knowledge and good understanding or some experience from abroad, or was it rather something that people found in the newspapers, on the social media, and it made them like sure that they have already some knowledge sufficient to be commenting on the document?
Well, with such a high number of comments, we obviously received some that were of quite a low quality, where people just shared their impressions or shared their concerns. Is this hydrogen even safe? Why are you doing that, guys? We don't want this. And we had comments coming from think tanks that were really into hydrogen, that knew very well what is happening abroad, that were giving us comparisons and numbers and pushing us to rethink some things that we've put in our first draft. So this component of international either cooperation or just drawing from experiences from abroad was present, although it wasn't as visible as concerns focusing more on the domestic market, because also, well, power situation in Poland is changing, but it also means we are sorely missing not only renewables, we are missing power in this country, which is not the best starting point for hydrogen economy, if you want.
I believe that this is a completely different story, kind of complex, and that we can spend hours speaking about. But I would like maybe to stop this point here and go to this kind of contribution that we receive from innovators and from researchers. Usually, many of the new concepts and new ventures are based on some experience from abroad and also some lesson learned when we can collect, well, where we're spending some time in different organizations or different companies abroad. And now I would like to approach Piotr again with a question on how much of the experience, how much of the transition from abroad can be beneficiary for Poland. One of the ideas behind the Polish strategy is kind of agglomerating the society, gathering together people with experience who will create such research hubs that will contribute and accelerate this whole process. And Piotr spent some time at CERN, which is one of the most unique research infrastructures in the world. It is a kind of a place of international research activities where we have a lot of different people with completely different background who are together jointly working on those breakthrough solutions on some concepts, sometimes not so much arriving to the market very soon, but making a big contribution in the end. So can you imagine that we can have such maybe a similar situation in Poland, that there will be kind of a big research organization that will be our flagship in those hydrogen technologies? And are we mentally ready to establish something? Are we ready to collaborate between our different organizations here in Poland from different cities? We know there is always a bit of tension. How you can comment on that?
That's a very fun question, actually. The short answer would be some of us are ready, as always. Yeah, I mean, beyond the obvious question of money, because CERN, as you might know, has tremendous budget to conduct the research, and it's actually very specific. You know, they do a lot of stuff, but for a very narrow topic, right? So, so beyond that, I would say that it is possible, yeah, and to make a internationally renowned scientific center in Poland, especially because hydrogen is still pretty fresh discipline. I mean, everyone in the world is very into it because it's on the rise, definitely. But beyond the money, as I said, there will be it would be necessary to be serious about the research you would like to do. I mean, of course, focus on the hydrogen is not only to work on the hydrogen itself, because to use hydrogen, you need to also work on the demand side, for example. That's my field of expertise. I mean, creating hydrogen is one thing, but how to use it or how to consume it, let alone how to store it, for example, is entirely different thing. So it has to be multidisciplinary, at least open to some multidisciplinary cooperation, and it just begs to cooperate with some other research facilities. So it's hard to imagine for me to build like a standalone hydrogen hub in Poland and no one will ever get close to us. For example, it would be both ridiculous and inefficient, but I believe that it is possible. I mean, if we are serious about getting some international people, we need to provide some sort of prestige, or at least the feeling that we are serious about this. And I will sum this up by saying that it's not only the cause that we have great results in the multinational facilities or research centers, but it's also not only the cause, but also the effect. Because when you have great results, you also attract people, like, for example, the USA does. There are plenty of multinational people there, and they apparently have some decent results. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, to me, it seems that you need to be based on people for whom money is not the only motivation, apparently. So you need to find people who are passionate about it and people who are willing to contribute somehow.
Well, both things would be fine, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Luca is working in a National Fuel Cell Research Center at UC Irvine. This is a big group. It's a kind of international group when there is like a permanent staff that gets very solid interaction with the industry. I've been able to see this for numerous months being there, and also there is a big rotation of the team. And for me, it's interesting to kind of try to compare the Polish approach with the US approach. What we are saying here here in Poland that we should rely on the industry, who should be the technology driver. They should be defining the roadmap and the targets. And is it the same case in the US from your experience? Can you say that really that this interaction with the industry is the measure, or is the way to trigger new activities, to define what the researchers are doing? Is it really the business that is defining your activities, or is it rather the researchers are working on something and then trying to push it to the market?
Yes, thanks for the question. And first of all, I just wanted to say that it's refreshing to see the feedback that the policy in Poland received. That's definitely a good driver for international collaboration and for international visibility. And in the US, I think it's definitely, at least for my experience of working in Europe, here in the US, it's much more sort of flexible in terms of type of activity in the university or in the lab. I was a visiting student here at UCI 5 years ago, and so coming from Italy, and it was it's definitely attractive to come and spend some time in the US, and then I transitioned after a couple of years into a permanent staff. So that was kind of my path, and so definitely, yes, there is a lot of rotation of visiting scholar and researchers coming from abroad, and those are very sort of fundamental to keep the workload going. But definitely that we have a set of people that are permanent and that can sort of establish long-term collaborations, even like decades-long collaboration with industry. So I think that's definitely a very necessary to make sure that we capture the industry needs for our research. In terms of what drives what, either industry drives research or the other way around, it's a tricky question, and I think I think, or at least I like to think that the research is able to sort of inform the medium and long-term investing decisions of companies. So from a technical perspective, to make sure that the medium and long-term investing strategy are sort of based on sort of scientific facts, but definitely industry has its own economic drivers, and so we are naturally influenced by that, by the company that we work with.
So it seems that it's in a way a similar way we are pushing this forward. Well, in the end, it's all about people, the right people with right skills, with right background and training, and with the proper understanding of this. And my final question, last but not least, goes to Dr. Ania Niemczyk. And you work at EKTS Fraunhofer. That's, I think, the biggest research organization in the world, which is collecting those different people from different backgrounds. Some of them, they arrive from the industry, becoming researchers. Some of them are researchers who are going to eventually end up in the industry. It is all about like bringing them, gathering together. But can you say, after your time there in Germany, in Fraunhofer, were you able to identify an ideal composition of a research group? Like, what is the share between people who are basic researchers, people who work with the industry, people who are building the technology? Is there any like a golden bullet solution for that? Any like final advice about the composition of a perfect research team?
Probably there is, but I'm still discovering the proportion. There is no straightforward answer, but I think each team should have all of those parts of the people, like the one that are basic researchers, the one that they applied researchers, but also the people who are like aware how does it work on the market, and if it's, the potential technology can make a successful there. And also what I noticed that it's really important to not put the people only on one task and devote them like just for the narrow project, that also that they are collaborating with the others. So there is like the flow information from basic research to applied research, because all of them contribute to the success. And it's also good if they know like, okay, there's a need of basic research, because they know how the problem and the process is going on from the basic side. And then they could help us, like if we have some technical problems. And the other way around, that the researchers, the basic ones, they know why are doing it, what's like the common goal of the team. But it's also important to have some like management and business part of the team as well, for like making the financial support. So some of the team members, they are not thinking about it, so they can be creative and focused. And also this kind of space for creativity, because the people are innovative and they could make an effort. So there's no numbers, or at least I wouldn't say there is, but something in between. And like
I think this is like a final takeaway message, that we should think about the variety of skills, variety of competences in a group with different approach. And as Piotr said, the fear is usually a good motivation. I think this idea of fear and money will be not the only motivation for making the hydrogen happen here in Poland and elsewhere. So I think it brings us to the end of this morning session. Thank you very much for attending. Thanks to the panelists, especially to Luca, who stay awake to be present with us. And I wish you all the day. And please follow the next session on green energy that is starting right now. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.